Shane, are you?
I'll make you
Oh,
admin, but
yes.
I started the recording.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Let me share my screen. I really hope you can see it.
You make
Yeah.
can you make the window narrower? All the horizontal
Uh,
space doesn't really do anything for the folks who are sharing.
is it
Ah,
better?
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Today is October 22nd. It's the Gateway API sync meeting. I remind you that this meeting is recorded, so please be nice to each other as always. And the recordings will be also on YouTube as always. If you can, yeah, feel free to add your name in the attendees section. And I don't know if there is anybody who is new to this kind of meeting. If you are and want to introduce yourself, please feel free. It's always great to meet new people. Yeah, Nicolas, go on.
Yes, hello. I'm Nicola. I'm working at Traffic Labs as a head of support, and so working on Gateway API implementation in Traffic.
Welcome.
Good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Anybody else? Okay. I guess we can start then. And yeah, as always, if you want to turn your camera on, it's greatly appreciated. And the first item is from Candace, which is, I don't know if she's here.
I am
Uh,
here. I am
oh,
here.
yeah.
I even have my camera on, which I don't usually do.
Woo!
Um, but I did want to ask Nicola, since he's here, we think that traffic may have a backend TLS policy implementation. Do you know whether it does?
Yes, so we have implemented it for the next version with 3.2, which is in release candidate and which will be released GA end of the month. Does it answer your question? Yeah?
Yes. So it's available.
Yeah. It's already available.
Okay. So you
Excellent.
are number 3 of the backend TLS policy implementers. I didn't spell that right, but I just wanted to note it down. So the next, what I really wanted to bring up was that I wanted to ask if anybody, not meaning can someone do it, but does anybody have the permissions or authority to update this? Or is it maintained by one of the maintainers? We were using this fairly frequently uh, to record the status of our Gateway API enhancement proposals. Um, but I think um,
I was just able to
since
switch one from proposed to implementable, so apparently I am capable of doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure why. Um,
Yeah, I'm honestly not sure if this is just restricted to to maintainers,
it
seeing
can't be
that
restricted to
it's,
maintainers because I am not a maintainer.
yeah,
Um,
indeed. So it is not probably.
but informally, not I mean, should it really be
Okay,
managed?
okay,
Should it
okay.
be a
it,
spreadsheet that's restricted to maintainers?
I know that Shane has been kind of maintaining this project for some time. Shane, are you still here?
I'm here.
Oh,
I had a network disconnect thing for a second there.
shocking. Um,
Shock.
I
yeah,
would
we were
I would
this.
think that anybody who notices that this is out of sync with what the gaps actually are, it feels like that should be an okay thing to fix, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
We were. Sorry, Shane, go ahead.
no, it's okay. I was just gonna say, can anybody update it? And the answer is I can. What needs to be updated? And don't say everything.
Too late. Clearly, it's everything.
I meant there was a serious question in there. Like what needs to be fixed?
Maybe a different way to phrase that is, Candace, what leads you to ask the question? Do you feel like this
Yeah.
is badly out of date in general, or are you wondering about it for the future, or?
Yeah, I wanted to make some updates to the backend TLS policy one, though I feel like when I've done it in the past, it didn't stick. And then I was starting to wonder whether I should be the one who's doing this or not. Now I can't even see what I wanted to do. This is what happens when you add something to the agenda a
No
week
worries.
before the meeting happens. But yeah, no, I just wanted to know if there was any kind of policy in place about whether we should updates to this should go through the maintainers or whoever's in charge of this.
But
It depends on the update.
we may want to add traffic here at this point, for example.
In fact, I
Yes.
think we should add traffic there.
Indeed. Generally speaking, I would say it's not a big deal if people change things, but we can certainly just point them out in like the Slack channel real quick and say, hey, should we update this? If there's any question as to whether the change, like if you have any question at all, like, I don't know if I want to make this change because I'm not sure, we can throw it in Slack and just be like, all right, yeah, get that updated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the reminder though, Candace. I am updating 2257 and 1742 to standard because they are standard now.
Indeed.
Which might mean that they should just, well, no, they shouldn't just fall off of this board still.
And then last time, remember when we move things to standard, it frees up some slots for moving things to experimental as well for the next release or for the next planning period. So just want to put that out there.
Yeah, we still have 11 things in experimental on this board, which feels like a lot. But I feel like some of these other ones should be able to be moved too.
Yeah. By the way, there is one whole point about the v1.3 scoping, which is exactly about this. So I guess this is somewhat related because
we're in the scoping process.
Yeah, we are entering 1.3 planning, and as you all know, the first part is rescoping, which is going to last for like 4 to 6 weeks. And as like for the 1.2 release, we aim at deciding what we want to introduce in the experimental channel and what we want to graduate for 1.3 as well. So this is a reminder, I guess, about if you want to see something specific in the standard channel or something specific in the experimental channel, this is the proper time to ask, write your comment here and basically state what you want to see in the proper channel so that we can start the scoping phase. So yeah, Shane, is there anything you want to add on this point, or?
No, you probably are seeing a lag as we're kind of coming together and starting to do planning. And I hate to say this, but it's the truth. A lot of this comes together finally at KubeCon. It's just kind of how it naturally happens. Like we get to KubeCon and we're like, oh, there's all this stuff hanging behind it. We finally pull it together and we get the motion going. And that's like where the energy goes until the next KubeCon. It's like that's where all the momentum comes from. So expect that this will probably have a little bit of lag. We can work if there's anything that's an obvious bad shape, yes. But during this time between now and KubeCon and then during KubeCon is the perfect time to be loud and advocate for the thing that you want to see in scope.
Yep. And
not that loud wins, but being quiet won't help.
Probably many features will be around the hot topics that we have for our breakroom sessions planned for KubeCon. So yeah, I personally expect a lot of interest around these topics, honestly. Okay. And Shane, developer user experience.
Yeah, just wanted to keep moving this forward because this one I think is, if not the most important, definitely one of the most important things that we need to think about going forward. I thought I meant to do it last week, but I didn't do it. But I am going to try and put a topic so that we can talk about developer UX at some length at KubeCon, but we can also talk about it on all the meetings leading up to that. So in my head, actually, I probably should do a review. There's probably some people in here, and I know James maybe hasn't seen this yet, but for the last few months, we have been constantly bringing up the developer UX. And for those who are not super initiated, you will find documentation on our website that refers to Anna, the developer. We are a role-oriented API and largely inspired by something that Flynn has done for many years and that I saw him do back at Ambassador and with Emissary and stuff like that. We name those roles and talk about them like real people, which we find to be a helpful exercise for kind of working through their problems and trying to look from their perspective. So Anna, the developer, and oh crap, Flynn, help me real quick. The
Ian, the
Chihiro,
infrastructure.
Ian,
Chihiro, the cluster engineer. Ian, the infrastructure engineer.
Thank you. So Chihiro and Ian are served fairly well by Gateway API, we think, right now.
Yes.
All things considered, the being able to kind of say, like, at the infrastructure level, set up a gateway class and the operator and stuff like that's all pretty straightforward. The gateway level is, the gateway resource itself has been kind of reasonable, and there's definitely some issues that we want to work out related to listeners and stuff like that potentially, but all things considered, pretty good support there for Chihiro. But we've noticed some gaps for Anna, and just in general have been talking about, for the 1.3, maybe 1.4 cycle, trying to advocate for some developer UX related things to make the developer experience easier. And these things can be lots of different things. Documentation, tooling are certainly part of that. Like just making the documentation more accessible from a developer perspective is good. We talked about some simple things like just like having a better structure for that kind of goes towards that mindset of like, I'm a developer. I don't really care a whole lot about the infrastructure. I need to expose my app and I need these rules and so forth. So just a different interface perhaps to the documentation or a different way of navigating it could be helpful. Also, the discussion I linked at the top was because we had been talking about developer UX for some time, but we hadn't really had any like specific things we brought up. I took a stab at something that resonated with me as like, this might be a specific thing that we could work on. And that discussion, which I would invite everybody here who's interested in this to go comment in there, talk in there, do it, async. We can talk synchronously now as well, but async is meant to kind of point out that with Ingress, we did not have to know as a developer much about the infrastructure. That's a lie in some cases. There's definitely a gray area there. You have like annotations and things can get weird in certain implementations, but broadly,
there were more
I think
cases where you didn't have to think about it anyway.
Yeah, there were more cases. So maybe that's something that we should look at as a thing to improve the developer user experience. Can we make it so that HTTP route has a more direct parallel with that experience for some of the more basic cases? Can HTTP route not have to have, and for those who might not know, it has to have right now a parent ref and know what gateway it's on. In Ingress, you might be able to say, here's my deployment. This is how you, the Chihiro, are going to go off, or maybe not Chihiro, but the operator will go off and say, here's how you deploy my app. And then here's my ingress. Here's the port it listens on. And you didn't have to think about what gateway it was on, but in Gateway API you do, which kind of creates more friction for certain use cases. And it's certainly valid to be able to point out what gateway you're on for some use cases. But for like a pure developer, I'm creating a thing and I'm trying to create some manifests so that people all over the world can deploy my Nextcloud or something like that, in various different places, it's not broad or it's not general enough. So that's been on my mind. We're going to do some KubeCon breakout talks about this. And in general, I'm just kind of throwing this out there as like almost like a PSA for other people to come up with ideas. Like, what are some user experience things you've seen while trying to use Gateway API or when interacting with your customers or what have you, where Gateway API has been frictional or could be made better? Let us know, create issues for it, talk about it here, bring it up.
There's a related piece to that, which also gets back to stuff that everybody will go, oh, good Lord, Flynn is always getting on about this, which is use cases. Use cases are good things. So for example, the case that Shane just pointed out about, oh, I'm a developer. I'm trying to create my alternative to Nextcloud, and I want to provide people with information about how they can do this. It is important if you're a developer in that case to be able to offer at least guidance to people. Hey, here are the kinds of HTTP routes you're going to need for this application to work properly. And this is an important thing. Conversely, there's probably also a use case around you want to offer guidance to your developers about how they should set things up if you have an external facing gateway and some internal gateways, right? Should it be the case that your developers assume that their HTTP routes will bind to all of those things? What level of control do they need there? I don't think we've done a great job at really laying out some of those use cases, and I don't think I know all of them either. Those are just two off the top of my head that I've had to worry about in past lives. So that's also a place where, to the extent that people have ideas about that, that would also be really useful. And I think I just stopped on somebody who was about to say something.
Legit.
I think that a very related problem to what you are talking is the fact that we lack user feedback. We have close to zero user feedback, right? I was thinking something. It may be naive somehow, but I just wanted to share this idea. Since we lack user feedback, what about adding? I mean, I guess that any new Gateway API user is starting the discovery of our Gateway API, starting from the Gateway API documentation, right? So what about adding like kind of a banner in the Gateway API documentation about, hey, we really need your feedback. Please, if you have a use case or if you have a setup that can be interesting, please let us know either on Slack or GitHub. Just kind of a call to action to users just to gather some feedback.
That
I like that
sounds
idea.
good.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, that sounds good and simple, and it's right on the front page. And we could try to make it as simple for them as possible. Like maybe it just goes to a form that they can fill out or something like that.
Oh yeah.
That's a
Or
great idea.
email
At
address.
first, though, I was thinking you were going to say, "Why don't we put telemetry in Gateway API?" And I had a huge Cheshire cat
Not
grin on
not really.
I had this
No.
great grin on my face because I was like, "This is gonna be a great conversation." But no, I think the actual idea you're saying there is wonderful. It's a good use of our
Telemetry
front
would be pretty
page.
funny.
Telemetry would be a hilarious conversation to have. Let's not do that today.
We could also ask implementations to do the same, right? Hey, if you're building on top of Gateway API, please ask your developer users to toss us some information.
Yeah, I get your point, but I work on an implementation, on a Gateway API implementation.
Excellent.
And
You have users and they can give us feedback.
Yeah, the problem is that very often, software engineers are very disconnected from the users of their product. And I think this is a real problem. So, for example, I am a software engineer who works on a Gateway API implementation, but I honestly feel pretty disconnected by the users who use my implementation.
And to be clear, it's not that I don't want your feedback. Well, okay, I kind of don't want your feedback, but you are in a position where, being much more serious, you could put into your end user documentation, for example, hey, the project that has created this part of this stuff we're building on is really looking for your feedback.
Yeah,
The feedback from people who are creating implementations is actually really useful just for a different part of this. But everybody creating an implementation needs to explain to their users how to do this stuff and is in a good position to ask their users to bring feedback back to us.
yeah,
Hey,
it's a
Potentially.
point.
hi. Hi,
Hi.
everyone. James Strong. So we had the same problem with Ingress Nginx. We didn't know who was using it, what versions, and we were getting ready to make a huge bunch of changes. We put a community survey together and we just sent it out. So I think that might be helpful in this instance because that gave us a lot of data on like what features people were using, things that they wanted to see and stuff like that. So
To whom did you send it?
Yeah.
We just sent it. How did we do that? There's a QR code at the end of my maintainer talk, and then I tweeted it out, put it on the dev mailing list, things like that. So we just shouted out into the world. So if we put together, work with the community, I forget which community we worked with SIG we worked with. We put it out there, give it to the maintainers.
Yeah. We have at least 3 talks in main tracks at KubeCon about Gateway API. So that's an excellent idea to toss a QR code up there.
Yeah. It could
In
be
fact,
cool
there are people on this call doing all 3 of the talks that I know of, so that should be fairly straightforward to do.
Yeah, let's say, just put together a survey and just put it out there.
Yeah, I like it. I am not going to volunteer to do the survey because I would like somebody slightly less biased to do that.
Mattia, you're
If I do the
still
survey,
showing
it'll
the
read
GitHub,
like,
by the way.
how much do you think the user is not currently served by Gateway API? That seems a little unfair.
What's up, Shane?
Well, Candace had her hand out. I was just saying we're still on the specific issue rather than the Google Docs.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, Candace, go ahead.
Oh, I think the community survey is a great idea. And I also put a note in here about whether anyone's doing a 1.3 blog. Maybe we could add a link to this community survey to the blog as well.
The 1.2 blog post has yet to go out and will need to go out shortly. So we can start by putting it in the 1.2 blog post, which I am doing.
Okay.
So
yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So we just need some volunteers for writing up the survey.
Yeah, we need to create a survey. Flynn and others need to put these into talks and blog posts, and then somebody has to change the website. So there's at least those 3 actions.
Right.
I can start creating the GitHub issue for the website and creating the survey.
That sounds wonderful. Action items in our community meeting.
Oh my God, feeling. Say it isn't so.
I'll say it is so.
Backing up for a moment to the enhancement board, I went and updated everything in there to match what currently shows up on the Gateway API website, which means that, for example, 7.13 moved out of experimental into memorandum, and direct policy attachment moved out of experimental into provisional, and some other stuff. It was actually more changes than I thought going and looking at what was in experimental. The end result is that we actually only have 6 things in experimental right now, which
and actually TLS route is kind of stuck again.
Yeah, TLS route I couldn't actually find on the website. I was gonna say I'm not even sure what that. I don't know what's in there, right? So we should decide what to do with TLS route at some point.
Is there an action to take for TLS route today? Is there an async discussion to be had there? Because I think the discussion about TLS route could take up an entire community meeting. So that might be a good candidate for an async discussion on the GitHub forums to kind of get the first blast of like everything that's going on out. I don't know. I'm just asking because I haven't been very connected to TLS route, but it seems like a potential candidate for like, let's not let that sit and burn if we can spend a few cycles on it asynchronously.
Yeah, the only problem, the main problem that I see very quick, the only problem that I see about TLS route is that it's once the new proposal for gateway merging landed, it got kind of stuck again. So it's in a complex situation, TLS route and all the L4 routes.
Yeah.
I agree with Shane that we could easily burn the rest of this meeting on that one. So
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we
If
should
you make a
just
discussion, I'll definitely jump in there.
Yeah.
And then we could use that to kind of get the bulk of it done and then hopefully start moving towards conclusions. But I get what you're saying about gateway merging. Gateway merging feels incredibly nebulous to me, unfortunately. Not because of the attempt, but because of the let's tack on a lot of stuff. That sounded more negative than I meant. But like let's add on a bunch of additional things to try to like bring them along for the ride, I think is what got it stuck.
I think the only way to, maybe not the only way. I'm kind of feeling like the merging thing might be something that requires various people to sit down in a room in person and shout at each other about it is the wrong way to say that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, at the very least, a dedicated conversation about it again, which we did once. I think unfortunately needs to continue unless everybody can agree that maybe we should take a different approach. I don't know, but we got to talk about it.
Yeah, agreed that talking about it in person might be worthwhile. 'Cause, yeah, I was kind of thinking of like doing the immediate small scoped thing potentially intersects with future plans or proposes future opportunities for other things.
You're in crazy robot mode, Mike.
Sorry.
You are, but he was agreeing. I heard most of it. He was
Sorry,
agreeing with the merging thing. I'm going to just put it on the topics for KubeCon.
I think it would be helpful if we can talk about it there, yeah.
Because I could see a whole afternoon. But the drinks will be free, so it'll be okay. All right.
All right.
This is good energy. I like this a lot.
We have no more items. Is there any specific topic anyone wants to pick up? To bring up, sorry.
Last minute items are always welcome.
Yeah.
Or Shane can get an early start on lunch. That's always
I'm gonna head out. Take care, y'all.
Now I'm desperately trying to think of some last minute items so that Shane doesn't get to have lunch early.
We can discuss 20 minutes about TLS routes.
Oof.
Yeah, I got nothing.
If you're ready to have that conversation, we could do where we say like, okay, all right.
Not really. It was a joke. I had the perception that Candace had something to say. If not, it's fine.
I would have agreed with spending 20 minutes on TLS route, but
I mean, I think the big problem with trying to spend 20 minutes on TLS route is that we instantly get into, okay, should Gateway API at the moment focus on L7 and leave L4 for later or for some other project? Or do we really want Gateway API to go and be the be-all and end-all way to handle all levels of routing? I know which way I would vote. I would say that L7 is sufficient. L7 is a sufficiently large problem that we may as well focus on it for the moment. But I don't actually know things like, is anybody trying to use TLS route, for example? You know, again, what are the use cases? How will it affect real people as opposed to those of us who are just implementing or heckling? And I don't have enough information about that to really have an informed decision right now. Have an informed discussion right now.
I was taking a look for another reason. I was taking a look through the conformance reports recently, and there is the TLS route There are some tests for TLS route that several vendors are saying that they've passed conformance tests for TLS route. So yeah, I think we will have plenty of reasons for using TLS route. Red Hat needs TLS route for some of its authentication communication.
That's kind of fascinating, actually. Sorry, I don't mean that in the snide way. I meant that at face value.
I can see your face, so
Yeah.
I
If
could
we
tell.
yeah, I mean, if we have multiple implementations that are claiming conformance with it, then that's certainly an important data point, right?
Yeah, it's kind of weird because Kong supports TLS as well. I don't think we are publishing a report with TLS route in it, but we support TLS route at the moment. Maybe we are not just conformant yet. But the real answer is that we have no users on it. It's something that we have implemented, and basically there is no internal traction to move the API forward because there is no basically interest around it, at least in the company I work for. And to be really honest, the feeling that I have is that this is a pretty common situation, but I may be wrong. This is just a feeling. Candace say that Red Hat is something that is meaningful. So yeah, I may be wrong.
I will just add that Flynn's position is very similar to mine in that I question whether we should be thinking about scope outside of L7. My inclination is that we should lock the scope in at L7, but that is a very contentious topic, and some of the representatives that I believe would be on the other side of this are not here. So better as a topic when they're present or as an asynchronous discussion. I think it's perfectly reasonable to put a discussion up about that specific topic, but
yeah.
I think that as many irons, as many irons. I did it.
Dude, don't throw tires in the fire. It smells really bad.
As many irons as we have in the fire right now, trying to figure that out might not be the top priority at the moment. I hate letting things burn. It's like sit and burn, but it might not be the thing to focus on right this moment. Go ahead, Candace.
Completely lost my train of thought. Sorry. It had something to do with TLS route. Sorry, completely lost my train of thought. I'll come back to it.
But an additional point about getting rid of TLS route just in favor of L7, as Flynn was suggesting, is that
great. Now I'm going to forever be the guy trying to get rid of TLS route.
No. I mean, it's something that you were open to discuss. You were not advocating for it, right?
Yes.
So yeah, is that I guess the TLS route is very different from TCP and UDP route. TCP and UDP route are very there is no interest at all around them, while TLS route is something that could have some friction, some traction, sorry. So it may be worth to have separate discussions for TCP and UDP and TLS routes.
I would tend to agree that there seems to me to be more interest in TLS route than TCP and UDP route, maybe. But now, of course, I'm just sitting here going, hey, Mattia, make sure you put it on that feedback form.
Yeah, put it on the form. I was about to say, it's hard to tell. But we've definitely had people with UDP route come through, including entire like the Stunner implementation that came through that were like, yeah, we're building on UDP route. I've seen UDP route in the wild a few times.
It is a terrifying, terrifying thing to have people come up at KubeCon and go, oh, hey, is your Ingress going to deal with UDP? And you go, oh, man, we haven't really heard anybody with interest. And they go, well, I work in the VoIP space. And you go, oh, crap. Okay, yeah, I guess we should think about this. You know?
Yep, you got it. Candace's hand is up. Go ahead, Candace.
Oh, I forgot to lower my hand, but I put it in the chat. I remembered what my thought was. It would be helpful to say what you mean by layer 7 stuff, because I mean, especially in terms of Gateway API, I think not everybody has the same idea of what layer 7 stuff is. For me, TLS route is about pass through. Would you consider that a layer 7?
I would first like to take this opportunity to point out that the OSI model is horrible. And yeah, but to me,
layer X equals 1 plus N.
Yeah, exactly. To me, HTTP route and gRPC route are unquestionably layer 7, and TCP route and UDP route are unquestionably layer 4, and TLS route is horrible because I can equally well argue that it's 4, 5, 6, or 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. So TLS route is very much a more gray area to me than either TCP route or UDP route. Yeah. I'm also, I suppose I should also point out that I'm being a little bit facetious there because you will also hear me comment that layers 5 and 6 are fundamentally useless. And, you know, really it's just 2, 3, 4, and 7 are the only ones that are relevant to real human beings.
So the answer is that there is no answer.
Yeah. TLS, in all seriousness, is fairly well recognized as being something that cuts across multiple layers of the OSI stack, which is why TLS is problematic in a lot of ways, right? I mean, it has to be above layer 4 because it rides on top of layer 4 protocols. Okay, does that mean it's an application protocol or something else? And if you look back at the original definitions of the OSI 5 and 6, they don't fit either. So it's
let's
TLS
just be hilarious and call it layer 4.1 and just stick with that for now and put that in our documentation. Layer 4.1 is just TLS and just piss everyone off. It'd be great.
That'd be awesome. I could almost get behind that. Yeah.
But I do want to make sure
we
that
didn't
we're
use it at all.
4.5, James says.
Yeah.
I think this is good conversation,
is much
but
funnier,
I do want to make
James. You got to admit.
is if it's possible to move this towards actions, that would be good because I do think this conversation could get kind of like into the weeds a little bit, right? But the point about like defining things is actually completely legitimate. All the points are legitimate, but we're talking around the issue quite a bit. What can we actually do to move things forward with this? And is now the time?
I think an async discussion is probably the most reasonable thing to do here. But
yeah.
I would also like to point out that if we have a gap for TLS route, I would like to see that in the enhancements section on the website somewhere, right? And that would be a good thing. If it's not experimental, it should still be somewhere if somebody's working on a gap, right?
Yeah. As I said before, as I said, I really think that before starting writing any gap or any document that is intended to be documentation for TLS route, I strongly think that we should figure out how our gateways are ending up looking after the gateway merging story, because that's kind of a blocker for now. I am afraid that we can spend a ridiculous amount of time working on L4 routes, and then they just become meaningless because we just pursued another way of merging gateways. And there was this discussion about moving the TLS configuration or something else in the gateway space, so that basically the L4 routes become meaningless.
From the point of view of the developers, I feel like that's likely to be a bit backwards, right? If the developers are thinking about HTTP route and gRPC route, it feels to me more natural that you would then talk to them about TCP route and UDP route instead of saying, oh, those things become gateways. But that gets us right back to there's a longer discussion to be had there, right? Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if your application just listens on UDP, if your application is a DNS server, you're in the same boat as the Ingress conversation earlier, where it's like I just need to show people how to expose the UDP port. It's the UDP TCP port, which actually is
But
funnier.
you also need a way to tell the world that, oh, hey, UDP traffic on 53 goes to this specific application, which to me is a different level of thing than I would like you to listen on port 53 UDP. Right. So that's why I tend to think in terms of routes there rather than gateways.
Yeah, that's good. Good point.
I'd also like to point out that some of the extending the mesh onto non-Kubernetes workloads things has made me infuriated with DNS in particular. So you picked a great example of a thing that ends up being far more complex than it ought to be, because telling client libraries not to use port 53 is very, very hard. So that's a great example of one where it's not just that you have to pick on UDP, it's that you really do need control over a specific port number. So we should bear that use case in mind. Yeah. It's always DNS.
Okay, I guess it's time to start a GitHub discussion about it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. All right.
That seems like a reasonable action.
Yeah.
So a survey, a discussion, action items.
Want me to take that one, Mati?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you. Okay. Any last minute topic?
Just a quick reminder to everybody who may not have heard this yet that the CFP for KubeCon London is open and will close not very long after Salt Lake. So it's a pretty limited window. Don't forget to put in your proposals.
It is great news.
There's links in this doc. I'll bump them up again.
I'm sure none of us have been spending lots of time writing responses to CFPs for London. Oh, actually, that does remind me. At KubeCon in Paris, Mike Morris and I did a workshop about Gateway API. At KubeCon in Salt Lake City, Mike Morris and I are reprising our workshop on Gateway API. At KubeCon in London, Mike Morris and I are throwing up our hands in despair and going, oh dear God, we don't want to be doing this again. Okay, we're not actually throwing up our hands in despair. We're just kind of going, look, if someone else would like to do a workshop on Gateway API, perhaps London would be a wonderful time to pass that baton, and we would be happy to help you if anybody else is interested in doing that. The material that we have worked with can be made available if that's interesting. We are not going to do it. It's probably an opportunity for somebody else to do it instead.
Sorry, Frank, when you say workshop, what do you actually mean?
We did a workshop. Mike, do you have the wait, Mike is gone, I think. I will see if I can I'll see if I can find the link really quickly. We did a workshop where we showed as a 90-minute workshop, we showed how you could spin up a cluster with Envoy Gateway and Linkerd and spin up another cluster with Istio and configure them both with an application using Gateway API. And we really used it to show off the fact that, hey, here is this thing that we have created whose purpose in life is to be able to configure wildly different infrastructures and get the same result. And Guilherme has already found the source code repo. That was amazingly quick. And I think I have, here we go. I just found the YouTube link for the thing. Wow, somebody even beat me to the YouTube link. Danush, excellent. I'm somewhere between delighted and ashamed. It went over very well. It's honestly one of the only things that I know of that they have accepted for two KubeCons in a row. And we had some kind of fun conversations afterwards with people coming up and going, "Oh my God, now I get it," which was always kind of fun. So yeah, if somebody else would like to do that, that would be great. I don't think the need is gone. I just think that it's silly to do it with the same people all the time.
It's part of the regular main track, right? It's just
Yeah.
yet another talk. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I think could be, there are a lot of interesting things that I think could be done with that workshop. But the main point was really demonstrating the fact that Gateway API is supposed to be something that's independent of the kind of cluster you're using, independent of the exact infrastructure you're using, and is supposed to make it work. And yes, we did, in fact, have to put a certain amount of effort into making sure that whichever one you follow, whether you're using Istio or Linkerd, we had to deliberately set the gateways to have the same name so that we didn't have to edit all of the routes, because that would have been annoying. Bringing us back full circle to the whole developer UX conversation. I suppose I should also point out, if anybody wants to actually watch the YouTube link, I might recommend doing that at faster than 1x because it's 90 minutes long.
Is it entirely live, the demo part?
I'm sorry, say again?
Is it live? The demo was live?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
Nothing broke?
No.
Oh, that's great.
What was even more fun, since Mike is not on here, I get to say this, but if I recall correctly, Mike ended up changing something in his configuration either while we were on stage or right before we went on, one of the two. And even that worked, which was kind of cool.
I do actually have a question for oh, he left probably. Yes. So yeah. Never mind. Oh yes, James. I forgot his name, but I see he's not here anymore. So yeah, I'll write to him on Slack. Okay. I guess this is a wrap.
Until next time.
Yep. Thank you everybody for attending and see you next one.
Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.